future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with on ubnradio.com.
And welcome. My name is Dr. Marissa, your midlife crisis interventionist, unless you really want a Corvette. And you're listening to my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon on your phone or computer at www.ubnradio.com out of the Sunset Gower Studios. And I'm here with my fabulous station manager, Tony Sweet, and my beautiful sound engineer and production assistant, Angelica Lopez. And this is a show about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words. Kardashians. Seriously, I believe that we spend way too much time focused on other people's lives and in worst case scenarios. So that's why there's very little to be happy about. We wake up, listen to CNN, constantly negative news, and that sets our day, and we end up walking to work or driving to work saying, what's wrong with people? So that's why this show is about being happy 88% of the time. My guests and my topic and my questions of the week are all about how we can be more happy. If you missed my past Oprah guests, Fran Drescher, Dr. John Gray, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Don Miguel Ruiz, and a lot of other wonderful experts in our relationships and improving them, in how to deal with cancer, in how to heal from any kind of past pain, please do go to iTunes, download a free podcast, and you'll be able to listen to their episodes. And thank you so much for the many, many listeners who have tuned in to my special series this last couple of months on healing from past abuse. We've just been inundated with people who have listened to Chris and heard his story of being abused by a priest in his teens, and how he is working with me on the life balance coaching process on the air, that you can actually get them online in YouTube and watch the sessions and see how he is healing. And he's also healing by being part of a legislation that is actually on the floor today. So I'd like all of the people who are listening and in the studio with me today just to take a deep breath. And we're just sending the wisdom to all of the legislators that they do say yes to SB 131, that it would allow the people like my client Chris, who are now beyond the statute of limitations currently in place, to talk about the abuse, to heal from it, and also to find people who will say, yes, it was wrong in the church. That is what this legislation is. And thank you so much to the listeners. We did another hurdle August 21st. There's more today. Hopefully it will go. I know that the legislators have actually been listening and paying attention to this. So we just know that healing and abuse of the darkness from abuse on this planet is going to be a thing of the past. So shishya to you. And now, after I did my series on abuse, I would talk about my trip to Brazil. And so today is the beginning of that. And one of the stops that I went on was John of God. And John of God is an amazing place of healing. And I know that you're tired of hearing me just talk alone. So I thought I would bring some of my fellow travelers and guests into the studio, and also have Tania call in from Brazil. And she's a volunteer that's been with John of God for many, many years and doing incredible work there. So without further ado, Angelica, you can finish with that, and we're going to introduce our guests in the studio. First, we'll go to my left, Karimu Shah. And Karimu is a retired school teacher, and he's an educator now. And so he's joining us. And as well, right, for those, since we have our cameras on, I have my wonderful friend who was actually my roommate through the trip in Brazil, Trina Watton. And she is a business manager, and she does many things. That's why I hesitated there. And then to her right is Stacy Ratliff. Ratliff, thank you. And she is a business investor and also a wellness and coach and blogger and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yes,
And
many
then do
hats.
we have Tania on the Skype? We're hoping that she can hear me as well. She's not here yet, but she will be coming on. So without further ado, I'd like you to welcome my guest to the studio.
Glad to be here.
Yay.
Thanks for having us.
Wonderful,
Yes, thank
wonderful. So, John of God, it's interesting. He's getting more and more press. Obviously, when Oprah went to him a year ago, and if you haven't had a chance, go onto YouTube and you'll get some enlightenment there. And then he was written up in this last month's Science of Mind. Co-owner of the station, Ann Walker, handed it to me when I walked in today, which was wonderful. And then, my own story of how I got to hear me? Tania?
Yeah, now I
Oh, yay! Welcome to the studio, Tania. And I'm so blessed to be able to connect with you. I met you when I was on my trip there. If you look on your computer right now, we're flashing a picture of her and I. She's this absolute beautiful blonde woman, and she's beautiful on the outside and beautiful on the inside. And she is a volunteer at the Casa, and she works with John of God on a pretty much daily basis. And so I asked her, the expert, to come and answer some questions to set the stage for who is John of God and why we would want a miracle. So those are the two questions of the week. So let's start with you, Tania. Who is this John of God, and why do so many people go to him?
Right, Dr. Marissa, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this.
Absolutely.
I'm down here in Brazil. Well, for me, when I have an opportunity to speak on the stage to the public, I always say he's the greatest paranormal transport medium, I would say, on earth, in my opinion. So I've been gone to several places in Brazil and outside Brazil. Brazil is a very spiritual country, and it is hard to find someone that incorporates, like we say, is so many entities like John of God does, over 32, entities
Okay.
he works with.
And for those of you listeners, I'm just going to stop for a second because there's a couple of words in there that the average business person, and I have a lot of business people who are listeners, and I know Stacy I brought today for one particular reason, because she is your typical, corporate, came from the corporate world. Trina also did some of that, and not necessarily open or believing, or maybe a tad skeptical of things like mediums. And mediums, as I can understand them, are people who actually have spirits that speak and move and act through them. Is that about accurate?
That's right.
Okay.
John of God, since he was very little, about 8-9 years old, he felt that something was going on with him. He, usually he incorporates and he doesn't know what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. And when he was little, he started doing that, and suddenly, his mom said, well, I don't know what's going on with you, my son, but you had something in your body, you know what I'm saying? That was the beginning of everything. That was talking to people and saying things. And suddenly when he comes back, let's say like this, when he's not incorporated anymore, he, talks like John of God, and he does not remember anything about what happened to him when he was incorporating and talking to people.
Right. And I've actually seen that happen where he goes through a transformation where some entity comes and it occupies his body. Now, for those of you who are listening who are like, oh, I am totally not into UFOs. I'm not into, the only entity I've ever seen is on the movies called The Exorcist, and the girl's head spins around. So we are talking about that, and we're not talking about that. We are talking about, you do have to believe that there's something more than what we see. That there is some other energy, that there is some other life form that is not just humans. So I know that I'm one of those skeptics. When I learned I was going to John of God, I'm like, oh, well, it'll be nice to see and a nice investigation, but come on, really? 38 people enter his body, and he does these operations that cure people of cancer and of aneurysms and of, come in a wheelchair and they throw away the wheelchair and they walk away. Come on, that is not possible. But I have to say that going to the Casa and then reading up on it, and you, Tania, can you tell me how many times you've seen these miracles?
Oh, my Lord. So a good question. So I've been working with John of God for 5 years already.
Uh-huh.
If you want to, let me tell you what happened to me. Actually, when I first came over 5 years ago, it will be 5 years this coming February, I went to the Casa, and the very first time that I passed by the entity was Dr. Augusto. Just let people know that most of the entities that John of God works with, they are doctors. So Dr. Augusto told me to sit in current, which is, we have to explain to the audience,
yes.
Current is like would you like to do that?
Yes. Current is when you sit in a room that the entities are present, correct?
Right.
And the healing can start there. And for those of you who have absolutely no idea, let me back up a second. John of God is a healer, and he heals with past doctors, so doctors who have already passed and transitioned and no longer have a body, but their spirit or their life that is beyond human comes back into John of God, and then John of God performs these operations. And he does visible and invisible operations, and then that's the first part of what I was talking about, how people are healed. So the entities are the ones that are in the whole Casa, and then when Tania was saying she went and sat in current, she sits with her eyes closed, and she actually feels the energy of the entities, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Matter of fact, this process that you explain to people what a current is, which has a different meaning for us in Brazil. I mean, the word current, right, would be like a chain. Like I said, I'm sorry. Since I passed by the entity, but for the very first time, Dr. Goose told me to sit in current, and I couldn't understand why. So I sat down with my eyes closed, and after a while, actually, I sat in current for 2 years.
Wow.
In a row, like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. As you know, we have 2 sessions. Mm-hmm. In the morning, you start working like 8 o'clock in the morning, comes about to 11 o'clock, and then we have like a break where people have the wonderful soup from the Casa. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then at 2 o'clock, we all there again, back to the Casa for the afternoon sessions. Mm-hmm. That's what we call. So I was sitting in current for morning sessions and afternoon sessions for 2 years in a row, okay, which gave me the balance that I was looking for, because if you don't mind, I explain my situation, please. Why I went to the Casa. Matter of fact, many years ago, I met someone, his name is Calvin Cates. He's a healer, a spiritual healer also. He's in Florida, and we started dating and became, married. Mm-hmm. And he told me about John of God. He showed me, videos and everything. And as a Brazilian person, I never heard about John of God in my whole life. I was living in the States. So anyway, but I lived in Brazil for many years, and then I moved to the States, but never heard about John of God. And so I came down for the very first time 5 years ago. And when I was sitting in current to receive the balance because I suffered from depression all my life.
Okay.
Real bad.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I told him when I was right in front of him for the very first time. I said, please, can you help me? I have a lot of depression and I need help. He goes like, sitting current. So the sitting current, lasts like 2 years. And that was wonderful because I could understand why we have to sit in current. Because not only to receive the energy, to learn how to donate your energy, and to get the balance that we need to do everything in life. We need balance, right?
Yes, that's my website.
Exactly. That was very important for me because 2 years later, Dr. Gusto came up to me. I was sitting in Kurtz in the same place. He came up to me and said, "Open your eyes." And John of God was absolutely huge, full of light. He has like green eyes, and he wasn't looking like a human person to me at that moment. So imagine you sitting in current with 2-3 hours with your eyes closed, like meditating. So someone comes to you and say, "Open your eyes," and he told me, he said, "Tania, you are healed from everything that you had before, which was depression, right?"
Right.
And I only took pills, the herbs from the Casa, okay? And I never had any treatment with doctors on, earth doctors, that's the way we call. And because I always believed that there was a place on earth that I was going to get, healed for some reason.
Right.
Being a spiritualist since I was very little, I always believed that. So anyway, he told me, now you get up and go to work as a volunteer in the Casa.
Right. So you got a personal calling. You got a healing from a lifelong, I don't want to call it disease, but condition called depression, which many people in America seem to suffer from. They say that 1 in 4 now are on some kind of antidepressive or anti-anxiety medication, which is just unbelievable. So I know that a lot of people, I met one guy when I was getting a pedicure. Only I would find a pedicurist, right, in Abyginia. But but I met a guy there, and he said he was there because he couldn't shake the depression. So I know that a lot of people go there for depression. I know my guests here, I'm going to ask Stacy, what did you go for healing there for?
Well, I actually, when I signed up to go on the trip, I didn't have any kind of condition. I was just going to hold the space for other people to receive healing. And then this year, I started having some challenges and problems with a diagnosis that I had back in 2006, and that was benign uterine fibroid tumors.
So you went specifically to heal and asked for healing from that.
Yes, that was my number one thing.
That was your number one thing. Trina?
For me, it was interesting because I actually,
Yeah.
was sitting at Agape service.
Oh, you know what? I don't think your mic's on. Let's go to Karimu, and we'll get that fixed. Karimu, what did you go?
Yes, I went I had a stroke back in 2010, and so my primary thing was to go and find out the conditions, have the conditions heal that caused the stroke.
Okay.
And I found out we could do 3 things. So my second one was kidney stones
Okay.
to be removed and incontinence.
Okay. So those were your 3. Trina? Is the mic on? Do we get that? Okay. Go ahead.
For me, actually,
She wants to use that one. She wants to use that mic. Okay, we'll get this fixed.
For me, what was interesting is I had heard of John of God back in 2007, 2008, and always thought it would be really cool to see him and meet him sometime. And then I was sitting in service and saw the Brazil trip being announced and felt like I just needed to be there. And I didn't have a specific healing. I just knew I needed to be there. And it wasn't until the night before that all of a sudden I got the message that I needed to, like you, for me, I had a lot of fibroids and hormone issues, and the night before I just stepped into that healing, and it's been really profound.
Great. Well, my story is I didn't even know we were going to John of God. And then about 2 weeks before we left, I kind of finally, because I usually don't have time to prepare unless it's something like the show. So I figure nothing's going to change between now and when the flight leaves. And I read the material and I saw that we were going to John of God. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then I heard he was a healer. I still didn't know much about him. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll go and help and support other people. And all of a sudden this voice said to me, don't you think you need a little healing? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm fine. And the voice says, didn't you have a hip replacement last year? And I'm like, oh yeah, that. Didn't you have 3 major surgeries last year? Could you use a little bit of help with the healing and the health? And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'm supposed to go for me. So I went in line and they told me I had 3 things, and it was easy. Money, because I want to, expand this show, obviously, and expand all the kinds of creative endeavors I have going with regard to peace. And then health with that. And then the third one, as a side note, I wanted to do more around the peace work around the world and becoming more international. And then I couldn't decide between that and a guy. And a partner, right? So I went back, and my roommate Trina goes, "You better put the guy on third."
Yes.
So I actually put the guy on third. But then the wonderful thing was when I went in line again, when we actually got into the room, the healing, the operation room, they said you can have 9 things. And I'm like, oh, yay. So then I made the whole list. And then the last thing on I only did 8. And I'm like, oh, I can give away the 9th thing. I can sell it. No, I can give it to somebody. And then all of a sudden the same voice said, self-love. And I'm like, oh, no, I got that down. And then I thought about it again. And all of a sudden, the realization that who is the worst boss I've ever had? Who is the worst slave taskmaster I've ever had? Who drives me crazy? And it's one person, and it's me. And relaxing and enjoying and just taking it easy were not part of my vocabulary. I had been on this crazy train probably for the last 3 or 4 years. So it was this, the clouds parted and the thunder came down, and it was just the most amazing healing for me, for self-love. And that was what I went there for, not realizing it. And it's just, I've been changed just on that one factor since I came home. So you guys, tell me what happened to you in the rooms. So you went in the room and you did the spiritual operation.
Yes. So, we sat and meditated in current, and then walking up to John of God, I felt this peace and this just, I don't know, overwhelming feeling of love. And I actually remember tearing up as I was walking towards him. And he took my hand, and I looked into his eyes, which is what they instructed us to do. And he gave me my prescription and waved me off. And so I went and sat and meditated with you. And the rest of the folks, yeah.
That's great. Trina?
Yeah, same experience, actually. I was nervous because I had a fear that he was going to want to do a physical surgery, and I had learned that...
Oh, good. Tanya, let's talk about that. Okay. So there's 2 kinds of surgery, visible and invisible. And the visible one is... I actually was going to volunteer because you know me, no fear, right? And then I saw what it actually on the video screen where he takes a knife and he actually cuts someone open. I'm like, that's okay. We'll do the invisible.
I'm good with invisible.
I'm done with that. So tell me, Tania, if there's no difference. Oh, first of all, what is the visible operation?
It's breaking up. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Oh, what is the visible operation?
Okay. Like John of God and the entities always say, going to the Casa de Deus to Loyola, it's a hospital. It's a spiritual hospital. It's like taking a shower and putting like new clothes on, okay? Clean clothes. And that's what they do. The basic, I think, in my opinion, the basic, thing that they do in a Bhajana is like cleansing you first, removing all the energy that you don't need anymore, that is, let's say, glued, okay, in you. And then little by little, releasing that energy. So they bring you to like a different field of energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like you guys were talking about the love in the Casa. This unconditional love that we're not used to outside here. You know what I'm saying? And yes, a lot of people, including myself, for the very first 2 years that every time that I was sitting currently and I needed to talk to the entities, because I always say before it gets better, it gets worse. So in the beginning of it, when I was sitting in current, my depression was real, real bad. I was about to die. I said, I'm not going to make it. And I used to get up and go to the entities, get in line and go to the entities and say, listen, it's driving me crazy. What am I going to do? Sit in current, sit in current, sit in current. Then I understood that they were like removing out of me all this depression energy that I have glued in my spirit, right? Spiritual body, let's say like this. And so you asked me about the surgeries, and that's what they do. So every time you have a surgery, it's like, removing and releasing an amount of, energy that you don't need anymore, For you, in order for you to be able to, like awakening, helping you for a new, awakening, a new thing in your life. That's what I.
So it's not actually cutting out a tumor, or because I've seen some of the videos where he actually reaches in and he looks like he pulls something out.
Yeah, but if you see his videos, there's people like sometimes they volunteer to to be operated like visible operation on the stage, and sometimes the person has a problem in the heart. Let's say like this as an example, and he cuts the belly, the stomach or whatever. Okay, not the stomach, but down here, or you know what I'm saying?
Not anywhere close to where the problem is.
Exactly. Why is that? To release the energy, not necessarily that he's going to open up your heart in front of everybody on the stage, to heal whatever you have in there, right? What's wrong? But I understand, like assisting John of God, like every day, like I do on the stage most of the time. I see that he cuts sometimes in a part of the body that there has nothing to do with the person's complaints. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because they always say, just place your right hand, over your heart, because it's general. So over the heart, so it's like you can have whatever you have in your body. If you put your hand over your heart, you're going to be like embracing everything. So all the energy is coming to you, to help you out.
Right.
Because one person can have up to 9 surgeries at once.
Right. And that's what I did. And it's like when they told me I could do 9, I was in heaven.
Who told you could do 9?
Yeah,
I
they
thought
told
the
me.
number was 3.
I know. I did too until I got inside. Now, what's interesting about these surgeries is, in one of the Oprah interviews, the guy actually said, I could feel it and it hurt. But I have to say, in the most people that I have seen, witnessed, or talked to, said that they felt nothing. I mean, no anesthetic was needed. They didn't feel it, and it was like a miracle. Reverend Cheryl is one of them, who was one of the leaders of our trip, and she had an eye surgery. People who've had like a nose cavity surgery, that where there should be a lot of pain with what he's doing, had absolutely no pain. So, Karimu.
Yeah. Mine was a little unusual. He usually prescribes it the morning, and then people have their surgery in the afternoon. Well, in my case, he prescribed 6 crystal baths. Now, what crystal baths are, the baths are light rather than water. And it lines up with your chakras, and you have all the primary colors. So I had to have 3 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. So I couldn't have my surgery until the next day.
Okay. And then, so tell me now, we'll start with you with the miracles. What happened before and after?
Okay. Just before I left for Brazil, I was scheduled to have kidney stones removed. The doctor found kidney stones. And so I told him I was going to Brazil, so he wanted me to have it before, but I said, no, I don't want to have any discomfort. So I went on to Brazil against his wishes, because he thought something was going to happen on the plane. I was going to experience pain. But anyway, I went there, and the day I saw John of God, the night I saw John of God, and the next day, I experienced blood in my urine. And I told some of the people traveling with me, I think something's happening with the kidney stone. So anyway, when I got back, I went to the doctor for my pre-op. So I insisted they take an x-ray to find out, because I was believing that the kidney stones had been removed by
So
John
you
of
believed
God.
it. You felt something, and you believed they were gone.
Exactly. And then when he put the x-rays side by side, he looked at them and said, there's no kidney stones. I have to cancel the surgery. And then the last thing he said, what's his name again? I want to Google him. You're going to make me a believer.
That's wonderful. Wow. And so, for those of you, we're going to take a break right now, but we're going to come back, and I'm going to put the moose on the table around anyone who's thinking that we've all drank the Kool-Aid in here, and we will talk about the other side of this. Is it a fraud? Is it a scam? Is it possible? What about that? But this is the sound of music that is reminding me now to take a break, to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Sacred Geometry Pendants. I was recently at an event where Samuel Kawaz Dr. Marissa, also known as the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura. And thank you for those listeners who are commenting in the chat room. Apparently, the feedback is the unfortunate consequence of being able to connect with Tania in Brazil. So we apologize for that. We'll try to have that cleaned up in the podcast. But for now, we're just going to have to deal with it because otherwise I wouldn't have Tania. I really would like to have Tania. But Tania, you know what? While we're talking, I'm going to turn off your mic and see if that helps. And then when hopefully you can still hear us. And then we'll have you comment when I ask you one. All right? Great. So let's. There's no sound at all. Oh, they're saying there's no sound at all. Tony, can the people in the chat room say that there's no sound on the air? All right. So I'm going to keep going because I know this is recording, and we can definitely fix that when we. Oh, it's back on. They got the sound. No, okay. We'll have it on the podcast. All right. So Karimu had a miracle. His kidneys. value, but when there is a point where there is no hope, or you've or even if you don't want to stay the course of traditional, there are other options. And this definitely is a place with very powerful. Dr. Oz, Oprah's doctor, actually went and looked and validated all of the healings that had happened. So it is truly a place of miracles, and you have to take a breath and say, well, maybe, as weird as this sounds, there is some life that is afterlife that does come back and play with us. That it doesn't just have to be about The Exorcist. It doesn't have to be bad. That the entities out there, and now with the reality shows and the shows about mediums, and that, you know, my daughter made me watch that one, the woman that, you know, has entities talk to her, and she goes and guesses people's whatever, you know, things about them. I know I had Hans Christian King on. I love him. He's also a medium. He's able to help people by, you know, transmitting some messages from the past and people in their past. So there's definitely something there. Now, if you are one of those people that is still saying, come on, Dr. Marissa, quit drinking the Kool-Aid. This is a huge scam, a huge hoax. I've read all the stuff. He's really, you know, someone that just likes to take off women's bras and slice their, you know, chest, and it's all a scam to make money, and all this stuff really doesn't work, and it's just a ploy to get people to Brazil in this little town, and it really doesn't work. I'm here to tell you, you know, if there was a part of me that believed that, I went there. He doesn't charge. He doesn't charge to go to see him. If it was a scam, don't you think that he would charge $100 to go and go in line to see him and to get healed by him? He does not charge. So for me, I'm like, how could you even say that? And there's way too much proof on the side of miracles do happen than there is on it didn't happen. So Tania?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you hear me put the moose on the table there and actually address? I'm sure you have intimate, you know, when people are not happy and say that this is not real. I can't believe that there isn't enough of that running around. How do you respond?
Well, I believe, Dr. Marissa, that some people, when they go to the Casa, they don't have any faith. It's hard to believe what's going on in the Casa. Since you cross those gates, you start feeling the energy there, because it's like a portal of energy in Abadiania, the town itself, I would say. But there's people who come to the Casa for the last twice, like, you know, I went to the doctors here, and you know, it didn't work out for me, so there is nothing else that I can do. I'll go to João of God, the healer. Okay, even though if you don't have any faith, I've been seeing people, you know, being helped by the entities, even if you don't have faith. And that's what I always say.
Right.
To get the cure, to get healed, you know, depends on things that we don't understand the way spirituality looks at us. You know, I don't know, looking at you, I can't tell and how is your spiritual level right now? What makes you to get healed if there is, you know, somebody else in the same situation that it takes longer to get healed? What I see in the Casa is, first of all, would you like to say how many places in the world that we all know, that, you know, keeps the doors open, that you enter and that you don't have to give your name, your address, you don't have to sign down for anything.
Right.
The doors are open to everyone. Like João of God always say, this is a spiritual hospital. I don't heal anyone. I'm just an instrument of spirituality.
I love that too. Yeah, he doesn't take credit. He's very humble. You know, he realizes he's an instrument. He's a channel. And he also says that we all have that capacity. We're all healers. and we are all beings of love, and I totally resonate with that.
Yeah, and the spirits of light who work in the Casa are spirits sent to, from God. All right, and I believe they are very, they full of love and very merciful. A lot of mercy in terms of no matter what, if you have faith, I'll help you.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's not a religion. It's not a religion. It's
Absolutely
a spiritual relationship.
Yeah. Basically, I believe that Casa de Dom Inácio works with the energy, and that, like I said in the beginning of, it's like removing or moving you out of the field where you are right now, okay, to a different, type of energy field.
Right.
For you to be able to experience and start taking the different turns in life. That's
Right.
what I
Right. Great. And on the faith side, I do want to say something on as a skeptic, right? As a recovering skeptic. Because I used to think that, you really shouldn't go unless you have faith that moves mountains. If you really believe, that's the only way to get healed, right? So if you go there, and I used to tell my clients, if you're going to try this, go in and you have to fully 150% believe, or it won't work. And I've changed that because I met Stella, who went to John of God in a wheelchair. And she's now running, biking, walking 8 miles, stuff like that. And at a future date, her and I'm hoping Diego will come on another episode of the show. And she said, no, she corrected me. And she said, if that was true, it almost puts it like a test. Like you have to have faith, otherwise you're not going to get healed. You're not going to get healed. So I've amended that belief. I think that faith as small as a mustard seed, if you can entertain just a little bit that it's possible, that entities are a part of a friendly universe, that there is life beyond what we see, hear, touch, smell, that there are friendly doctors who want to help heal, that we're supposed to be healthy, that we're supposed to be happy, that we're supposed to have a unique talent, gift, and ability to share in this lifetime. That faith will heal. So I have totally shifted on that. And I know Stacy had an interesting experience. I'll let her explain when she came home, because she's my fellow skeptic here.
Yes, exactly. No, I agree with what you're saying, because I remember there was a Harvard medical school doctor who went down there and he had doubts. But the entities have a way of showing you when you're in doubt. And even though he didn't have a surgery, when he was leaving the Casa doing an investigative report, he had a little cut.
Wow.
And started bleeding. And he was like, how is this happening?
Right, right. So John of God didn't touch him, but he had a cut.
Exactly. He didn't even get a spiritual surgery, an invisible surgery. So, yeah, I love how the entities play with you like that.
Yes.
Well, what happened to me is that when I got back home, I was laying in bed watching an episode of My Ghost Stories. And I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but paranormal teams go into old haunted hotels and Victorian homes, and they try to capture spirit energy on film. And I thought, well, what would happen if I tried to do that? So I turned out all the lights in my house and took out my camera. It was pitch black, and I started snapping pictures. And I caught 2 rod-shaped white moving orbs in my bedroom.
Wow.
Right above my bed where I was meditating and sleeping. The next frame had nothing, so they had moved on.
So we have actual proof on film that entities do exist. Awesome. Well, we're running out of time, so I want to make sure that anyone who is at all remotely interested, and I know there are, because I had a lot of people contact me and say, when are you going to do the John of God, and how do we get there? Tania is a guide, and she is pretty easily contacted. Tania, how do people find you? And I know that, of course, things aren't free. You have to pay for your flight over there. You have to pay for a place to stay, and all of those things. So it's not I call it, because I need to put the moose on the table around this. It's like, well, if it was so great, then it shouldn't cost anything for the herbs, or it shouldn't cost anything for the crystal beds. The reality is, it's an investment. If you want to heal, it's an investment or a show of faith that this is going to work. So it's not exorbitant. Tania, I think you said if you're comfortable, because I'm all about putting the moose on the table. It's a week.
It's breaking up. I'll try to understand.
Okay.
I heard that you wanted me to give people's contact. That's what
Yes.
it is? Yes. My contact to people. I'm sorry. Okay. It's Tania Cates, actually Tania. That's a very Brazilian. Cates, Cates. Guide all together. Tania Cates Guide at gmail.com.
Perfect. And if you didn't catch that, you can always get me at forbalance.org and ask for her contact. But it's Tania, Tania, Cates, Cates, guide at gmail.com.
That's correct.
Wonderful. And you have a program where you actually take people through the Casa, you help them, you put them at ease, you give them all the information, because I have to warn you, if you're going to go, you have to really follow the instructions. And one of the instructions is no spicy food, which I love, and the other instruction is no sexual energy for 40 days. So if you can't do that, then it's not the time. Or alcohol. Well, I don't drink. That's why I didn't even put that.
And no heavy lifting.
And no heavy lifting. So there are things, but Tania can tell you all of those requirements. And again, it's not. It is because it's truly an operation, just the same way your doctor tells you things to do and not to do. So Tania, any last words?
I would like to, to invite, everyone possibly, to go to the Casa, because it's a place, an amazing energy that you're going to experience. It's an amazing journey. And if you are listening to us and you need to be healed from anything that you have, please think about, going to Casa de Dom Inácio in Brazil, because it is an opportunity for you to get healed and get, rid of this, whatever you have in your life. That's what my message to people. So I trust Casa de Dom Inácio, I trust the entities, and it's a very unique place to go, where we learn discipline and so many other things that we should learn in life. Thank you.
And thank you, Tania. Share. And you get the Dr. Marissa Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award this week. Thank you so much for the work that you do in supporting John of God and the healing that he does. And it was such a blessing to meet you. And I hope that we will continue to stay in touch. And I absolutely am so grateful to know you and to be for you to be part of this show.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marissa.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Stacy and Trina and Karimu for coming into the studio and sharing your story and sharing your absolute healing and your miracles. And I thank you, listeners, for tuning in. That's it for today's show. The Balance Bar menu this week. You can come and hear me speak and teach Balanced Tai Chi Gong at the IVAT conference Monday, September 8th at the Town and Country Hotel in San Diego. IVAT is the Institute for Violence, Abuse, and Trauma. Or you can come and celebrate the 2013 International Day of Peace with Reverend Carolyn, Director of Agape Global Works Ministry, and myself in a half-day workshop September 21st, 10 to 2 at the Agape International Spiritual Center. It's called Peace Through Movement, Prayer in Motion, and it's a unique way in which you can find your center and be the change you want to see on the planet. You'll learn Balanced Tai Chi Gong, a moving meditation that promotes inner peace one breath at a time, and much more for a peace that passeth all understanding. So save that date, September the 21st. And yes, we are on round 27 of the 21-day fast from complaining. And today's balance tip, it's much easier not to complain if you replace a bad habit with a good habit, and that good habit is gratitude. And gratitude gratitude is a great attitude. So start your day with 8 things that you're specifically grateful for. I'm grateful for Angelica, Tony, Ann, Stacy, Trina, Karimu, and UBN Radio. There's my 8 for the day. And last month, I did the drawing for all those who gave me the finger. I'm just kidding. Gave me the thumbs up at Facebook. And the winner is Anna Perlman from Long Beach. She gets a free 52 card pick-me-up. Stacking the deck for life balance with Dr. Marissa. If you'd like a chance to win, just go and give me some kind of approval in the social media, or don't complain for 21 days in a row and let me know. Next Tuesday, I'll be continuing to share another Peace Stop on my Brazil trip, a school that reconnects the new generation with their cultural roots. How Martin Luther King Jr. inspired not only the American Civil Rights Movement, but the one in Bahia as well. Perfect timing for the fabulous movie The Butler and International Peace Day. So I've invited Agape's resident voice of Martin Luther King Jr., Gerald Butler, to come to the studio to do the I Have a Dream speech. And possibly Sharon LaPierre, who is a beautiful signer, will have the first ever radio for deaf people, if we can land it. That will be next week. The cameras will be on. So please do tune in at naturally high noon next Tuesday for Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. Peace in and peace out.
Overseas, they're fighting for our freedom. This message from the entire Estrada family at United Contracting Services. For the best in industrial welding, metal fabrications, machining, and more, trust the business with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Call United Contracting Services at 918-551-7659. 918-551-7659. They're wishing everyone the best throughout the seasons ahead.
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire.
Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk radio without limits. That's why people keep